Hi, this is Lee and welcome to another weekly tip video. So if you've been following our last couple of Pages videos, you'll know Pages has two distinct document modes. So in shows 1571 and 1575, we focused on word processing mode, where you type at a cursor and text flows down the page automatically. Perfect for letters, reports and essays. But Pages has a second mode called page layout, and it works completely differently. Instead of a flowing text document, you get a blank canvas and you place every element on it manually. Text boxes, images, shapes, you position them exactly where you want them to be. And you'll use this when you're creating something visual, like a flyer or a poster or a newsletter. Let's create such a document together now. So as said in the intro, there are two types of documents that you can create with Pages. On the left here, we have a standard word processing document where you click, and an insertion point is placed, meaning you can start typing straight away from anywhere in the document. Whereas over here on the right, we've got a page layout document. And everything that you see on here is an individual object. So a text box or a shape or an image. And you can click and format all of these and reposition them on the canvas exactly as you like. This particular example here, we're going to be building up from a blank document. And you're going to be surprised how easy it is. Now, there are two ways to start a page layout document. The first is to use a template that's already set up for page layout. Now, Pages is running, so if I press Command and N, some of the template categories you might be interested in include certificates, organizers, newsletters. We've got book templates down here. We've got cards, posters and flyers, and more. And some of these are only available if you have the Creator Studio Bundle subscription. They're clearly marked by these icons in the top right corner, but you don't need a subscription to create some stunning documents. If I just click on this one here, you can see straight away there's no blinking cursor at the top of the page. Everything here, the image, the title, the body text, is a separate object sitting on the canvas. This means it's very easy to resize them and then drag them anywhere you like in position. You have complete autonomy over where anything sits on the page. And you can take one of these templates and replace the content, of course, with stuff that you need to get a head start on your design. Alternatively, of course, you can start with a completely blank page, and that's what we're going to do. So this is the second way to create a page layout document. You can see we've just opened a normal blank template here with a flashing insertion point. I'm going to come over here to the document inspector. And down here, we have a checkbox called Document Body. And what I'm going to do is I'll just uncheck this. And this is kind of a one-way process, really. We're going to move from a word processing document to a page layout one. And you'll see as I click around, there's no ability for me to be able to type. Instead, I need to start adding objects to my canvas. Okay, I've just quickly paused there and saved this document, giving it a name. And I've also changed the zoom levels so that we can see the whole document or poster on screen. I don't want anything overflowing. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is add a text box. And there's a couple of ways to do this. So I'll come up to Insert, then down here to Text Box. And we can see that's landed in the middle of the page there. So I'm just going to drag this up and then move it and size it kind of how I want it. I can be more precise later on when I want to tighten everything up nicely. Now it says type to enter some text, so I'll do exactly that and give my poster a title. So Missing Dog. Now I know you can't see that very well, but don't worry. As you would expect, we can change the format and size of the text in this box. So I'll select it all, then come over to the Format Inspector, click on Text. And here I'm going to make this quite large. Let's make it 48 points. I want it bolded. Then I want it centralized. And also vertically central as well there. Next, I'm going to add a second text box, and this one is going to sit underneath the title, so it's almost like a subheading, as it were. Again, I'll enter some text, so this is please help us find him. I don't want this too large. This is just going to be 12 here, but again, I want it in the center. Now, one useful trick when you're designing posters or anything in the page layout is sometimes spacing out the characters can be quite effective. And to do that, I'm going to come with the text selected to Format and then Font. Then down here, we've got an option for character spacing, and we can see the shortcut To loosen the spacing, which is to spread it out, is Option, Command, and a closing square bracket. So if I keep pressing that shortcut, you can see the text is just spreading out there. Now I'm just going to move that up a little bit so it's sitting underneath the title. And here we have two individual text boxes. Next, we're going to need an image of the missing pooch. So I'll come up to Insert, and then at the bottom, I'll select Choose. I've got an image file ready here, so I'm going to insert this. And there he is. Let's just do a little bit of movement here and get this resized. I think I want this to come down to about halfway down the page, or just over halfway. Okay, time for another text box, and you'll see that when I click here to add one, it's positioned over the top of the image. So I just need to drag it down to where I need it. And now I'm going to resize it. And as I move this all the way across to the left, you'll see that there's a yellow grid line there telling me it's lining up with one of those text boxes at the top. Then I'll do the same here. Just move this across until it's lining up as well. And there we are. I'll tidy them all up later. Make sure they're all lined up. Okay, I've just added in Simba's name, and I've made that a 60 font. So it should be the largest text on the poster where people call his name. I've also added in a text box below that, as you can see, which just gives the breed, his sex, and his approximate age. Now I'm going to give this text a different color because later on in the video, there's going to be a background sitting behind these two text boxes, and the color will just make it pop a little bit more. So clicking here brings up the color palette window. Let me just move this up. And when I'm setting my colors, I like using this second tab here. Then I click on the drop down so that I can select RGB sliders. Then I can enter in a hex color down here so I get the exact color that I want. And the code for the color that I want to use is FFAA77. It's that kind of peach color there, which is going to look nice later on. Okay, next I'm going to put two text boxes side by side down here now. One of them is going to have a description of Simba, and another one will have some information as to when he was last seen. So let me just drag this down here, and then I'm going to pause and fill in the details. Okay, there are actually two items down here. If I click here, you can see that we've got our text box as normal, but that line there below the word description is not an underline. It's actually a completely separate line shape that I've put in. And this means if I click and drag the text box, of course, the line is going to stay where it is. It's a separate object. And that's not really what I want. I want them treated as one item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to command click on both of them. And that's both of them selected. Now, if I right click and select group, they're now going to be treated as one entity. So when I move and resize them, they're going to move together. This also helps me in another way, because as I said, I want to have a similar text box on the right-hand side. So if I just press Command and D to duplicate, now it's going to duplicate both items. So when I move this across and line it up, they both move across together, meaning now I can play about and resize this as I like. Okay, we've got almost all of the content that we want on here now. I've got a lot of text boxes in there, but now I want to start getting some color in here. Now you would think it would be best to just fill the text boxes with a color. And that's one way of being able to do it. However, I like to have a bit of a nicer effect, which can sometimes be to place shapes on the canvas. And then using layers, you can move the shapes behind the text boxes so that the text boxes are sitting on top. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to come up here to Insert, then down to Shape. And the first shape I'll add will be a rectangle. Now I could manually position this, but I quite like using the Arrange tab in the Format Inspector to ensure it's pixel perfect. I'm going to need the page dimensions, and I can see those here underneath Page Orientation. Now into the Format Inspector. Down here under Size, the width is going to be the width of the page, which is 21 centimeters. The height is the exact height of the page, and that's 29.7. And then I just need to position this on the page. And of course, the x-axis will have a value of 0, and so will the y-axis. Of course, this looks quite strange because it's just covering everything else up. And that's because this current layer is at the top of the document. Everything is sitting below it. Shortly, we're going to push it to the back, and everything else will sit on top. First of all, though, I want to change the color. So I'm just going to pause and change that. Okay. Here's that bright, vibrant orange color. Now to layer this and place it at the back of the canvas, I need to come to Arrange. And if I click on the back button, it would take it straight to the back. If you want to move it one layer at a time, click the backward button here. And you'll see each time I click, it's taking me back a layer in the document. Every object that I created adds on a new layer. Now I don't want to keep clicking, so I'm just going to click back. And there we are. I'm going to do just a little bit more though, because I want the orange to be a 1 centimeter border around the edge. And that means I need to place another shape and sit it directly on top of the orange one there. That means the width is going to need to be 2 centimeters less than the page. And the height, again, 2 centimeters less than the full page. Now the position, well, that's going to be 1 centimeter on each of the X and Y axes. Now I don't want that to be a black color, of course. I'm going to pause and change it to a cream color that I quite like. And there we are, that's there. Now to very quickly place it on top of the orange rectangle layer, I'm going to move it directly to the back. We can see the orange layer is covering it at the moment, but I'm just going to move it one layer forward, and there, that's in position. But I can see from here, the text box right at the bottom about the reward, well, that's not now in the right place. I just need to move and position this. And there we are, things are lining up. Next, I want to put some shapes around the text boxes. So for this, I'm going to come up to Insert. This time I'm going to use a rounded rectangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly position it over the text that I want shown above it. I'm going to pause and change the color of the shape so that it matches that orange border. And there we are. I am going to be resizing it again in a little bit, but let's just get it layered properly first. So here in Arrange, I'm just going to click backwards until the text that I want appears above. Okay, I do want to resize this, and you'll see when you use the drag handles, it can be quite aggressive. The interval there between drags is quite high. I like the precision of using the inspector. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to put in some absolute values in the size and position. And there we are. You can see we've got a nice gap between the border and the top of that shape there. And I've also changed the text to white to make it stand out a little more, as well as increasing the spacing on the text to make it fill the shape a tiny bit more without increasing the size of the font. Now the next shape I want to put in is going to be over his name. So I'm just going to come into my overflow menu this time. Again, I'm going to move this roughly over the top of the text. And of course, the text behind it is black. So when I start relayering this, I'm not going to see when the text is positioned above it. So I need to change that Simba text to be the color that I eventually want. And there, it's this orange color now. This means I can move the shape back over the top of those two text boxes, go back to the Arrange tab, and then just come down and move it backwards. And we can see that orange on black effect there. Now I'm no designer at all, but I do quite like this. And that's pretty much everything I need to show you to complete the poster. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause and I'm going to add in a few more shapes and just make sure that everything is lined up as it should be. And there we are. There is my finished poster. We've got a nice gap now between this and the image. I'll put shapes behind these two text boxes here. And the shapes have got a white background, so it's white on cream. And to help with that contrast, I gave the shape a border. And the border color is the same orange that is used pretty much everywhere else here. Then there's another orange shape here, and white text I've put again on top. I think the only thing missing is probably to give a little orange border around Simba's image there. So if I click on the image, come up to Style, down to Border, I'm going to select Line. And it's already got the orange color that I used for the other borders below. And there we are, one finished poster. Didn't need to use a template at all, but lots and lots of objects layered on top of each other to maximize the effect. Certainly not too hard to build. Now, even though that was a reasonably simple example there, I'm sure you can see that Pages has some real scope for creating visually stunning documentation without having to spend out on a more expensive option. Now, a lot of people are certainly going to be surprised at that, including me, and hopefully now you can move forward and create some stunning designs on your own. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back on Friday with a full video. So we'll see you then.